Hey guys, it's Caster here again. Welcome to another video review. So today I'll be reviewing the CM Storm Alcor gaming mouse. So this is a new line of mouse from CM Storm, two new ergonomic mice, the Alcor and the Miser. So basically the two mice actually spot the exact same chassis, same exact feel. The only difference is in fact in the sensor. So this is the optical version, which uses the S3090 from Avgo. The other one uses the Avgo 9800 laser sensor. So a little bit of background, I guess, because in the ergonomic mice you have like the i3, the Razer Death Adder, the Seal Series Rival. So CM Storm really haven't made like an ergonomic right-handed mouse to target this market. However, I feel like these are two very great offerings, and at a price that is quite competitive, and I think can really pack a punch. So I'm going to be talking about like the price, the build quality, kind of the shape, overall shape, how it compares to i3, Death Adder, etc., and the overall sensor performance. But in terms of sensor performance, it's nothing new. It is the old like sensors, but on with the review. So first off, on to the boxing. So the boxing is quite simple. It comes in a simple box. Inside there's a mouse, there's one pamphlet, and that's pretty much it. This seems to be the trend with a lot of gaming companies. They're just making very simple packaging. Zoe started it, and a lot of people have followed suited. So with the Alcor, I don't know if there are drivers, but for the Miser, you have to go online to find the drivers. I searched a long time. I'm going to be doing two separate reviews in this regard. So I bought this mouse, the Alcor, for 299 Hong Kong dollars, which is very cheap. It comes to a price at 39 US dollars with a 1-year warranty. And in terms of what it can do, like the 3090 sensor, I think this is a very competitive price point. In comparison, the Kana is priced at like 59.99, and other mice such as like the Death Adder was priced at 59.99. I believe the Death Adder 2013 edition is priced at something like that as well. So I think this is a very cheap option. I think CM Storm mice are cheaper in general, so definitely this is a very attractive for some people who just want a cheaper mice, but a good quality mouse as well. Moving on to the weight and the shape. This is a relatively lighter mouse. It weighs in at 87 grams, and in comparison, the IE3, for example, is 100 grams, and the Death Adder is 111 grams, the 3.5G version. I believe the 2013 version is slightly lighter, but you can see this is a lighter mouse. So for people who want a heavier mouse, this might not be for you, but for people who want like a lighter mouse, this is quite nice. If you play a lot of RTS or MOBA gaming, this could really work as well. In terms of shape, it is not a very big ergonomic mouse. The dimensions are 60.4 by 40.2 by 124.8 millimeters. So in terms of size, you can see for comparison the i3, I don't have it plugged in right now, and I have like a Death Adder right here. It is smaller than the i3, and it is smaller than the Death Adder. In terms of the Rival comparisons, I don't have the Rival anymore. It is a little bit shorter and doesn't feel as long, and is quite a bit smaller. So you must be prepared. If you do like the Death Adder, you do like the IE3, this would actually be a very nice fit. However, it is just a bit smaller. Now moving on to the shape as well. So when I first got this mouse, it is very reminiscent of the IE3. If you can see in these pictures here, the way on the side of like the aspects, I'll describe it, on the way in the left side where the thumb rest is very similar how it just curves in and curves out, rather than the very straight, relatively straight Rival or the relatively straight Zoe EC. On the base, it does have a fairly fat base as well, which kind of goes into the palm of your hand, similar to the way that the i3 does, and somewhat in the way of the Death Adder as well. So this is actually very nice. I believe that if you're using an ergonomic mouse, it should have this kind of fat base, which goes into your palm, and definitely with the rounder base, I feel like that would make for a more comfortable mouse. In terms of, that's what makes the IE3 and the Death Adder so great. But with the, like for example, with the Rival, it's not as round. It doesn't have round as a base, so for me personally, it doesn't fit inside the palm as nicely. So whether or not your palm gripping, finger gripping, and claw gripping, you do, I think, having a rounder base would make more sense. In terms of the height profile, this is a slightly lower mouse. This have a slightly lower height profile. If you've seen in Death Adder, it is quite a high profile. This one's more like the Zai, like the Sensei lower profile. So definitely, I personally like this because I use the Kana V2, I use the Zai, I use the Sensei, so I like that lower profile and ergonomic feel as well. In terms of the right hand side of the mouse, you can see that it has a nice rest. It's very similar to the i3 in terms of how the groove conforms to the 4th and 5th fingers. So this is, if you like the Death Adder, if you like the i3, this would definitely feel very hands-on, and you'll definitely, I think, like it as well. moving on to the build quality. So for what you're paying $39. So the build quality is decent, but I wouldn't say is extremely top quality. It's not like, I personally have always recommended Logitech as being the highest quality in terms of the material they use. This one, it's coated with, it uses ABS plastic. It's coated with something called UV coating. So it makes, if I had to describe the surface, it's very similar to that of the Zoe FK. So if you had very, let's say, dry hands, this mouse would feel very slippery. And if you had slightly moist hands, this mouse would be quite nice. And obviously, if you sweat a lot, this mouse would still be okay. It would absorb the sweat. But I feel like this kind of material, this UV coating, it would take a longer time for it to deteriorate. So in that sense, that's how the mouse feels. Some people like it, some people don't. I mean, I like the Kana V2 black version kind of matte surface. This kind of matte surface, like, I'm okay. I'm not, I don't mind it. I don't dislike it. I like it. It's okay. So some people might like it. So if you like the FK surface, this surface would definitely be for you. In terms of the other build quality, maybe the cord, for example, on the Alcor, it uses just a normal braided cord, almost exactly the same as the FK. The Miser actually uses a braided cord, but I'll get to that later. And it's quite flexible, quite nice. So not too much to say there. And in terms of I'll move on to the scroll wheel now. The scroll wheel, it's uses supposedly a something called high impact Alps encoder wheel, or whatever the hell that means. But to describe the scroll wheel, it scrolls quite quickly. There are very little stop. There is very little stop between every single notch, and you use very little force, and you can just go to the next one. So some people might have problems when they scroll through and switching weapons, for example. They might find it hard to control the scroll wheel, but this is just a personal preference. Onto the switches now. The switches it uses, they say, Japanese Omron, which I highly doubt, because there were pictures showing that they were actually made in China. Omron switches rated for 20 million, which is quite good. 20 million Omron switches I've only seen them in the Logitech mice. So for them to use it in the Alcor, and the Miser, I think is pretty good. The click, for example, you can see in my click videos, there are Omrons. They feel very similar to most other Omrons. I think the implementation is quite similar to the Kana V2, sorry, with the IE3, very quite similar to the IE3 as well. So Omron switches, the way to go. That's really that simple. Moving on to the sensor performance. So nothing much to say here, really. It's a 3090. Sensor performance, it ranges from, you can set it from 800 DPI to 4000 DPI, which are the specs. I'm not too sure whether or not there are drivers, because this is not yet released on their official website yet, so I'll update this video whether or not they have drivers, but there are basically 4 DPI settings that you can set with all 3090 implementation, a lot of them. You have 800, which is like the white one, and you go to 1600, 3200, and then you go to last one, which is 4000. So personally, I use the 800 and 1600. So if there are no drivers, which I don't know yet, but this is my initial review, then I guess it does limitate what you can set it at. With the Miser, it's slightly different. There are drivers for that for now, so you can set it, but for this, you can't set it. So that is a downside for now. Again, I'll update you if there are any updates. In terms of like just acceleration, there's no acceleration with this sensor. In terms of smoothing, it's actually very minimal. Like you can see, I didn't actually post a lot of the pictures, but I posted some pictures here. And yeah. Moving on to maybe another thing with performance is the liftoff distance. So with the 3090, a lot of implementations, there is a very high liftoff distance. So we did this by fixing the lens to lower the liftoff distance, and Kana V2 and this both suffer. They do have the same implementation of 4000 DPI 3090 sensor. So the liftoff distance is high. If you use a white surface like this scarab right here, you're gonna definitely feel it. Using a tape fix, it does work. The base liftoff, I think, is probably like 0.4 centimeters. So it's very high. If you use the tape liftoff, it lowers it about 0.1, 0.2 centimeters. So that is fairly good, but it does affect performance, if you can see in these pictures here. So I would, for my purposes, I use 800 DPI and I use tape fix, and I'm completely fine with that. So if you go on to use like 3200 DPI or 4000 DPI, the tape fix would affect your performance. So that's just really a heads up. Moving on to, I think I really just covered most of it, and just maybe concluding this short review, I'll do the review of the Miser. If you like the Death Adder, if you like the IE3, this would definitely feel at home. It has a very nice, smaller shape. than the Death Adder IE3. I personally prefer it over the rival, actually. The surface, they use a UV coating, similar to that of the FK. And if you have dry skin, it doesn't work as well. If you have slightly moist skin, that's actually quite nice. So at its price point, $39, it's definitely worth the purchase, I feel like. There's on-the-fly switching, which you can or cannot do. And overall, it's just a very, very solid mouse at what is price point. It won't replace the Counter V2 for me, but I think it's pretty decent offering. So hope you liked that video review. I think I may have missed some things, but feel free to comment and I'll try to get to you. If you like this video, visit me or subscribe. And if you want to get mouse review or whatever, visit me at my store at itechtech.com. So hope you guys liked that video review, and thanks for watching, guys.